Shalom, first and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahushai, Ba'Hashem, Rakal Kadash, double honors to the elders and apostles of great millstone who teach the truth and sincerity, and a shout out to Yakim that's out there on the four corners of the earth proclaiming this truth. Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahushai, Ba'Hashem, Rakal Kadash, Brakatum. So, as many are aware, now, if you're out on the streets and you want to do a live feed, you have to have at least 1,000 subscribers, you know, as part of the famine the word is coming in, which I covered this morning, you know. Truth be told, though, it's because we've been blowing the whistle. We're the real whistleblowers, but, you know, they don't like that. They don't like it when you blow the whistle. And when you tell on Esau, it's like no telling, you know, as they say, tattletales. But, you know, that's just it, though. That's the way Esau's always been. Who invented the word tattletale? Well, it's because, of course, Esau's always been that fucking bully, you know, and you try to tell on him, and then you get called a tattletale. But Esau's telling on himself anyways. Nonetheless, though, I'm just going to start with the Valley of Jehoshaphat. There's so much going on over here. Ever since Donald J. Trump declared the Golan Heights as the property of Amalek, the Israeli state, well, now the U.S. says that the Syrian Arab army must withdraw from Golan Heights contact line. So, you know, he has the gall to say that, you know, that's not a part of Syria and that Syria can't be there, right? Oh, or what? Oh, you're going to do a false flag and attack. Right. Anyways, this is from South Front.
Over 50 ISIS members were eliminated by the strikes of the US-led coalition in the outskirts of the town of Al-Baghuz al-Fakani in the Euphrates Valley over the past few days, local sources reported. The airstrikes were a part of the operation
fucking devil fucking with the
of
feed.
the Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, and the coalition in the area, which is ongoing despite a formal US statement declaring the defeat over ISIS. According to local sources, a notable number of ISIS members is still hiding in a network of caves and underground tunnels in the area. Despite this, ISIS cells within the SDF-held area have recently carried out a series of attacks, killing at least 10 SDF members near the town of Tiban and in the area of the Omar oil fields on the eastern bank of the Euphrates. On March 28th, General Commander of the SDF, Ferhat Abdi Sahin, claimed that the group, which includes the Kurdish People's Protection Unit, YPG, and their all-female faction, the Women's Protection Unit, YPJ, had made a decision to capture the area of Afrin from Turkish forces. We are preparing and making arrangements in order to liberate Afrin. Because this is a military matter, everyone should know that when the time is suitable, the liberation phase will begin, he said in an interview with Sturk TV. Currently, the SDF has no land route to Afrin from northeastern Syria, while the YPG and YPJ control only a few positions south and southeast of the area. Therefore, SDF statements regarding the military advance on Afrin are just a political move designed in an attempt to buy the support of the Syrian population. The group, which deeply relies on foreign support to control northeastern Syria, is currently facing notable problems with the control over the Arab-populated areas seized from ISIS. While the SDF has no real chance to capture Afrin itself, YPG and YPJ cells conduct attacks on Turkish-led forces on a regular basis. On March 31st, a Turkish service member was killed and one was injured in an attack by Kurdish rebels, according to Turkish Ministry of National Defense. Following the announcement, the Turkish military artillery fired more than 100 shells at YPG positions in the town of Tadmursh and Shuaga. No casualties as a result of the shelling were reported. The US-led coalition and its proxies from the so-called Revolutionary Commando Army continue to prevent evacuations of civilians from the Rukban refugee camp. They even held a live fire drill involving high-mobility artillery rocket systems near the US garrison of Al-Tanf located in the same area. The situation in the Idlib de-escalation zone remains unchanged. The ceasefire regime is violated almost on a daily basis. Firefights and artillery duels are especially intense in northern Hama and southern Idlib. On March 28th, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu came with a new statement claiming that his country will continue working against Iranian presence in Syria. The statement shows that the Israeli military is set to continue its military campaign in Syria. In its turn, the US did not limit its recent actions in support of Tel Aviv to recognize the Golan Heights as Israeli territory. It also demanded the Syrian Arab Army (SAA) to withdraw from the separation line area established in the framework of the 1974 disengagement agreement. US-Israeli efforts to force the SAA to do so could easily turn the Golan Heights into a new hotpoint and fuel the Syrian conflict further.
Which is exactly what they want, and I think that more than anything else will lead to the destruction of Damascus, which, is just right around the corner. So more on the Amalekites claiming Golan Heights as theirs, as Donald J. Trump has declared.
Now, from Bristol, Tony Gosling, investigative journalist, joins us now. Good to have you with us, Tony. Well, you heard UN Secretary General's comments regarding territorial integrity and sovereignty of Syria, including those of the Golan Heights, but looks like the whole world is listening to him and share the same idea, except Mr. Trump's administration.
Well, of course, also have problems with these sorts of decisions. Look, originally, back in the 1967 Six-Day War, the Israelis took a lot of territory in that part of the world, and far more than they were allowed to. They said that the Golan Heights was going to be a buffer zone. That's what they said in the 1960s. Now they're saying that they want to, and as many people have suspected all along, and the Americans are now backing them, saying that they want to have this piece of land for themselves.
And that's what this devil does. You know, he takes things that don't belong to him and declares it as his, because he takes everything by force. So, this is going to lead to the third woe and the destruction of Damascus. Because, of course, they're going to fight for all of Syria. And while that's going on, the Syrian Arab Army has been sending reinforcements to fight the Israeli Secret Intelligence Services, because that's who ISIS is.
Over the past few days, the Syrian military has deployed a new batch of reinforcements to the Homs Deir Zor desert, following a recent series of ISIS attacks in the area. ISIS cells operating in the desert in central Syria pose a serious security threat to the government-controlled area, conducting attacks on checkpoints of the Syrian Arab Army, SAA. The SAA has carried out several operations near Palmyra, Deir Zor and Al-Mayadin in an attempt to get rid of the ISIS threat, however so far with only limited success. Pro-government sources circulate speculations that large numbers of ISIS members who had fled from the eastern bank of the Euphrates, which is controlled by the US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, are preparing for major attacks on SAA positions. The towns of Al-Sukhna and Palmyra are named as among the possible targets. This scenario remains unlikely because any such attack would trigger a wide-scale military operation of the Syrian-Iranian-Russian coalition in the Homs Deir Zor desert. A similar situation was observed in 2018 when an ISIS terrorist attack in eastern al-Suwaida resulted in a major SAA effort that eliminated ISIS cells in the southeastern Syrian desert. At the same time, the SDF is developing its security operation against ISIS remnants in the area of al-Baghuz. This development comes amid increased activity of the ISIS cells along the entire SDF-held bank of the Euphrates. ISIS attacks have recently been reported in the areas of Al-Tayanar and the Omar oil fields. Pro-ISIS sources report multiple SDF casualties. The SDF media wing remains
because
silent.
We know that the SDF is not fighting ISIS.
The head of the Russian Reconciliation Center in Syria, Major General Viktor Kupchishin, warned that French and Belgian special services are preparing a chemical provocation in the Idlib de-escalation zone. In order to organize the provocations, agents of French and Belgian special services have
There really was a chemical attack in Haman not too long ago. Press was quiet about it
Ras al-Din terrorist groups
because they couldn't pin it on Assad.
Of the White Helmets pseudo-humanitarian organization, he said, adding that the goal of the effort is to create a fake video demonstrating Russia and Syria's use of chemical agents against the civilian population. The general warned that real chemical substances may be used against the civilian population in the area in order to gain more realistic footage.
To wag the dog. Because that's what the White Helmets are. They're your own wag the dog group. Fake group, you know. Kind of like Vice News is. And here's more in Syria. This is from April 5th. As the Russian Air Force pounds Idlib, Kurdish rebels attack proxy Turkeys. You know, because Gomer's been playing both sides on this.
On April 4th, the Afrin Liberation Forces, ALF, announced that their units had carried out a series of attacks on Turkish-backed militants. According to the ALF, on April 2nd, Kurdish fighters destroyed a bulldozer of Turkish-backed militants with an anti-tank guided missile near the town of Mare. On April 3rd, ALF members attacked a base of the Turkish-backed 55th Brigade near the city of Azaz, east of Afrin. At least 3 militants were reportedly injured in the attack. The ALF is a brand of the Kurdish People's Protection Units, YPG, which was created in an attempt to distance the group from constant attacks on Turkey-led forces in the region of Afrin. The YPG is a core of the US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, and official YPG statements providing details into the attacks on the Turkish army and its proxies, which were observed in 2018, were fueling tensions between Ankara and Washington. Now, when the YPG rebranded its units attacking Turkish targets, the US has an opportunity to claim that its local ally is not involved in these developments. On April 3rd, Russian warplanes conducted a new series of raids against terrorist targets in the Idlib de-escalation zone. This time, airstrikes hit Hayat Tahrir el-Sham positions at the hill of Nabi Ayyub, which is located in the area of Jabal Zawiya. The April 3rd strike was the first aerial attack on Idlib terrorists since March 22nd. Back then, warplanes of the Russian aerospace forces conducted a series of airstrikes near the towns of Al-Fua and Kafria in eastern Idlib. A low intensity of this Russian activity demonstrates that the widely speculated Syrian army operation in the Idlib demilitarized zone is not expected anytime soon. On April 4th, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited Moscow for negotiations on the situation in Syria with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Following the U.S. recognition of the occupied Golan Heights as a part of Israel, Tel Aviv is aiming to consolidate its gains on the diplomatic front. Another goal of the Israeli leadership to undermine the Russian-Iranian cooperation in the region. However, so far, these efforts have been unsuccessful. Israel's ImageSat International released satellite images showing 2 buildings, which were hit in the March 27th Israeli airstrikes on the Sheikh Nahar industrial zone, northeast of the city of Aleppo. Both buildings are located in the northwestern part of the industrial zone, according to the ImageSat photos. One of them appears to be a storage hangar. Israeli media claimed that Iranian forces were using both buildings for military purposes. However, there's been no evidence to support this claim so far. Video released from the ground shows that the targeted buildings were some kind of industrial facility.
Southfront is a crowd-funded...
Alright, so, you know, of course this devil's gonna lie on that, but you see how they're all Amalekites, and they're all fighting each other in the valley of Jehoshaphat. But wait, there's more. So while, you know, they're making threats, you know, that Russia should leave Venezuela, well, Foreign Minister of Venezuela goes to Damascus to talk with leader Bashar al-Assad, as reported by Press TV here.
Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Araiza arrived in Syria on Thursday and met President Bashar al-Assad in Damascus. In their meeting, President Assad said the U.S. and some Western countries have adopted hostile policies towards Venezuela because Caracas takes stances which are not in line with their interests. Araiza also said the 2 countries are facing the same enemy. He said the U.S. is trying to take control of Venezuela and its resources and decide its future.
This morning I had the honor of meeting Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. When President Assad explained to me about the days prior to the crisis in Syria, what instantly came to my mind was what Venezuela is living today. It's the same enemy with the same interests. I told President Assad that Syria's experience benefits us in Venezuela and gives us examples in how to confront such a conspiracy.
Araiza was speaking in a joint press conference with his Syrian counterpart. For his part, Syria's Foreign Minister Walid al-Muallim answered journalists' questions on recent developments in Syria. In his reply to Press TV's question on the continuous Israeli attacks, he warned Israel of the consequences of going too far in its attacks on Syria.
Israel is an enemy. It uses different pretexts in attacking Syria, like the presence of Iranian bases or depots. All that is lies. We all witnessed what happened in Israel when one missile was launched at the occupied lands. I tell the Israelis they must not persist, as we have the capability and determination.
Muallim also pointed to U.S. President Donald Trump's attempts to grant Israel sovereignty over the occupied Syrian Golan. He said such attempts only added to the international isolation of the U.S. He said Syria will liberate the occupied Golan Heights with, quote, all possible means, and that all options are on the table
isolated.
to do so. Syria's Foreign Minister Walid al-Muallim said his
These are the
country is
nations
looking
hating the
forward
whore.
to a complete victory in Syria in the near future. He promised that every inch of land will be liberated, whether the terrorist-occupied areas in the north of the country or the Israeli-occupied Golan in the south. Muhammad Ali, Press TV, Damascus.
So, there you have it, man. Pretty much the United States stands alone, along with Amalek. At least they're flocked on them out into this war. But not only that, but one of the allies is continuing to make deals with Russia. You know how they say keep your allies closer and your enemies even closer? Well, that's kind of what Gomer does. Really, truly, Gomer's enemy is the UN NATO, is America. And in fact, you could say the UN NATO will turn on America. And I love watching this.
Turkish Foreign Minister says Ankara's purchase of the Russian S-400 missile system is a done deal. He was reacting to repeated US calls to cancel the order, the latest of which came from Vice President Mike Pence speaking at NATO's 70th birthday bash.
S-400 deal is a done deal, and we will not step back from this. In any case, we have been always trying to improve and strengthen and deepen our relations with our allies, particularly with the United States, and we value our bilateral relations.
If Turkey completes its purchase of the Russian S-400 missile system, Turkey risks expulsion from the joint F-35 program. Turkey must choose.
I think I'll take the S-400s.
The most successful military alliance in the history of the world? Or does it want to risk the security of that partnership?
Turkey was quick to hit back over another sensitive issue in its relations with Washington. Turkey's vice president has warned the Americans against forming an alliance with the Kurds in the northeast of Syria, whom Ankara considers as terrorists.
So there you go, man. As I said before, keep your allies closer, your enemies even closer. And, nah, man, I'd take a S-400 over a F-35 worthless jet. You can see, though, that they really don't hit targets in Syria like they're supposed to. Now, we know that in the prophecy of Ezekiel, he also mentions Libya. Now, Libya has been in the news for the past couple of days, and pretty much what's happening is they want America out of there. They're tired of the Babylon the Great, their proxies being in the capital of Libya, so they're going right now to take Tripoli back from the terrorist groups that the United States backs.
Friday, everyone, from the national headquarters of RT America in our nation's capital. Hello again. I'm Rick Sanchez. So tonight, a look at America's foreign policy and the effect that it's had worldwide. This is a very important conversation. Have you ever heard of the term blowback? You've heard the term blowback, right? It's essentially, what it essentially means is in fact, I'll give you the dictionary definition. The unintended adverse results of a political or military action. For example, look at what's going on right now in Europe, right? Nations are angry. White nationalist movements seem to be springing up just about everywhere, but especially in countries where refugees have been pouring across their borders. Take a look at this chart that we put together for you on our wrap there. See that? Countries like France and Germany and Sweden and Italy and Hungary and Austria. Those are the top 6 that I mentioned, by the way. That's the top 5. France comes in at number 6. These are the countries receiving more immigrants than they can actually handle. And it's causing the expected backlash, populism, anger, resentment. But who really forced most of those refugees into the backyards of these European countries?
And this is why they hate the whore.
Our foreign policy. Our foreign policy. In fact, take a look at another list. You see the one on the left there? Those are the 5 places where most of the immigrants pouring into Europe are coming from. Syria's number 1, Kosovo's number 2, Afghanistan's number 3, Albania's number 4, and Iraq is number 5. And I'm sure you've noticed, because you're smart, because you watch this newscast every night, that 3 of the top 5 are countries where U.S. military actions helped create the chaos that caused the residents of those countries to flee. That, my friends, is blowback. A blowback that has created an angry Europe. Where, like...
And that's exactly why they're going to turn their missiles against America. We can't wait for that. We want to get out of this fucking place. And now I'm going to go over to the last American vagabond because he has a little bit more on this.
Now, speaking of nations such as Afghanistan or Honduras, or any number of others that were invaded, destabilized, raped of their resources, and then left to the very terrorists and dictators that were used to justify the illegal invasion. You know, all done, of course, under a guise of freedom, as it delivers the exact opposite. There is some interesting news developing in Libya that I wanted to include today for the final story. Now, this is interesting. This is not something I imagine most of you expected for the show or for me to cover. We've been covering a lot of other locations. Libya is definitely foreign policy included, and we've talked about it in regard to what happened there and why it's completely a failed state now because of U.S. liberation. You know, while they're trying to liberate other countries. Yeah, worked out well for Libya, I'm sure. And while Bolton continues to tout the Libya model, I mean, Bolton still thinks Iraq was a success. These people are maniacs, or they're just lying to you.
Lying to you would be correct.
Apparently is about to fight itself back against U.S. forces, which makes me think that we're about to see another field of war. It's already a field of war. U.S. is there. Whether they tell you or not, the U.S. is involved there. In Africa specifically, in Libya, or Africa generally, Libya specifically. But I think this is going to kick off into something much bigger because of this. Entitled, Libyan National Army Moves Towards Tripoli to Clear It from Terrorists. Which terrorists are... literally what they mean are the U.S.-backed people that are controlling the area, which we'll get to. But just think about this in regard to the oil, many other things. That this
like we were saying all along, Esau is the main terrorist.
Where we see, again, Western powers stepping in to quell a popular uprising. Which is what it appears to me. I can't necessarily speak for the Libyan National Army and what their agenda is, but it appears that it's represented by, you know, the Libyan people. But again, that's my opinion. I mean, who ultimately knows? But I do know that the group that they're fighting against are the U.S.-backed forces controlling the area. That says a lot. Now, several units of the Libyan National Army, the LNA, began moving towards the western region where the country's capital, Tripoli, is located. Now, this is according to the LNA's media office. They announced this just today. Now, the video basically just shows a lot of trucks with guns just driving down the street. Basically, the point is, look at how serious we are. We have hundreds of trucks, and we're headed to the capital. And it says, quote, under the direct supervision of the commander-in-chief of the Libyan National Army, and upon his orders, several military units moved to the western region to neutralize the remaining terrorist groups. This according to the LNA and their media office statement. Now, Tripoli and several cities around it are under direct control of the Libyan Government of National Accord, the LGNA, the U.S.-backed forces. Now, the government, which is known for its radical views, is sheltering terrorists in the area. So, I mean, I don't think I need to point out again I'm sure it's just coincidence that yet again we have a U.S.-supported group who's allowing terrorists in the locations. Weird how that works. It seems like the terrorist hotbeds are all in the areas the U.S. is currently there, you know, fighting them, I'm sure. As we've pointed out the opposite of that repeatedly. But again, just on a side note, point out that the U.S. forces here allow terrorists to stay, which is very clear to see. So they're sheltering terrorists in their areas. Now, earlier this year, thank you for the super chat, Joseph. Earlier this year, the LNA, the Libyan National Army, which I believe is the supported popular movement, led by Field Marshal Khalifa Haftar, secured the southern region of Libya after crushing many radical groups and remnants of African mercenaries, all there because of the NATO-US-backed war, and captured key cities and oil fields, specifically oil fields, from the pro-LGNA forces in the southwest part of the country. So now we have popular movements taking oil fields and taking territory from the U.S.-supported terrorists on the ground. Now, a source in the LNA, the Libyan National Army, National Army, excuse me, make sure I'm saying that right, a source in the Libyan National Army had told the Russian news agency, Sputnik, that the decision to liberate Tripoli from the LGNA and its militias has been made. That it's over. That we are on a mission to take back our territory, specifically focused on the capital right now. But it remains unclear just how far Haftar is willing to go. Haftar being the field marshal. Especially because the LGNA is receiving direct support from the United States. So it depends on to what degree the United States is going to feel obligated to step in and defend the people that they're currently funding. And again, remember, these are the people that are the terrorist groups that are selling slaves on the open slave market, and they're allowing terrorist groups to populate within this area. I'm shocked the U.S. is funding this group. It's just, the examples are countless around the world. We just don't like to talk about it. Oh no, we can't acknowledge that the U.S. government is funding terrorism. No, that's off limits, even though it's here and here and here and here and here and here. No, we can't talk about it. But I think this is going to develop into something much more serious, and we have to again remember that the only reason Libya is in this position, coming from what before U.S. intervention, was the nation in Africa with the highest quality of life. Just like in Venezuela, Gaddafi was using the gold standard, the gold dinar, to give them free education, free housing, social programs, free loans for school. What a terrible place. And now it's a failed state run by terrorists selling open slaves. Great job liberating that country, United States. Let's see if we can do the same thing with Venezuela.
See, this is why I like to forward his videos, as he tells the truth. So as we know that the Most High is baiting all these enemies of Yasha, the people that put us in slavery, he's baiting all of them to fight with each other, because all of these places are run by Amalekites, and, well, get them to fight against each other. So the Most High is baiting them. Ezekiel chapter 38 and verse 4, and it reads, "And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords." And the modern day swords is them nuclear missiles. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. And these are the places they're being fought over right now. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah, the north corridors, and all his bands, many people with thee. And this is all in the valley of Jehoshaphat, which you're constantly hearing about it. But now it's even taken its way over here, because Venezuela and Syria both agree that they have a common enemy. These places are uniting together because they have a common enemy, and that is Amalek, Esau. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou, and all the company that are assembled unto thee, be a guard unto them. That's talking about Russia, who is the protector of all these places, because Russia's now protecting Venezuela, which we knew that they would, because they have interests there. And after many days thou shalt be visited in the latter years, thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Yasha, which have been always waste, but is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. Meaning that those, the elect of us, Most High is going to come in. Verse 9, thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands and many people with thee. Kind of like the image you see in Independence Day movie. That's what that big cloud is going to look like. A huge ship. Thus saith the Most High Yahweh, it shall also come to pass that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. And thou shalt say, I will go to the land of unwalled villages, talking about Babylon the Great, America. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates. And that's just it, those people are just partying, living it up. Tonight they want to party like it's 1999. So they, don't even think that the war is right around the corner. No, they're just too busy living it up. But the Most High has been visiting this place to take a spoil and to take a prey, to turn thy hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations, which have gotten cattle and goods that dwell in the midst of the land. So pretty much this place, America, will be consumed by nuclear fire, which is why we love holding that sign up. If I was a larger camp, I'd be able to hold that sign up. But I'm a one-man camp, but I do carry the stick with me of the 12 tribes of Israel. For all that, I hope this has been edifying. Just take a look at everything that's transpired this week, especially since the new rule of YouTube that you have to have at least 1,000 subscribers in order to cast live on your iPhone or iPod, you know, or, you know, Android if you have that, you know. Either way, though, yeah, the Most High is doing this because he's about to shut up the word. That means that too many people have been living out like this verse says. You know, all of them that rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls. You know, people don't think that America is ever going to be attacked, you know, and they're like, oh, that hasn't happened, oh, that'll never happen. They think we're crazy going out there prophesying this. But America will be consumed by nuclear fire, and it's right around the corner.